Would you like to know more?
The Stellaris 4.0 beta is coming soon. Today we're going to be looking at some of the new features in just a little bit more depth. Namely, the new Precursor Selection feature, the Stellaris Databank, the new species modification changes and update to the species design process, and finally, the ship designer changes. It's a pretty short dev diary, so let's dive in. Last week, the developers announced the Stellaris 4.0 Phoenix update. Today, we're going to start going through some of the changes that are coming within it. As mentioned before, the changes that we're going to go through in the next few weeks are still scorching hot on the development branch, and they may change drastically before a final release. That said, the ones that we're all going to be looking at today have cooled off just a little bit and are now pretty stable. First, we have quite a simple change that was already leaked back in December by the game director Eladrin. The Advanced Settings tab, when you're setting up a new game, will now have a section that lets you set which precursors are available in your galaxy. And there is no minimum here as far as I can tell. You could choose to have just one single precursor available to be found in the game. As you can see from the screen, they recommend a minimum of 4, and you can select all 9 of the precursors, but you could just choose, if you wanted to only have the Cybrex, for example, or just the First League, or the Bowel, or the Zroni, or whatever it is that you think might benefit your playthrough the best. The galaxy will still be split into slices, and the available precursors distributed as they are at present. In the example you're currently looking at, the First League and Cybrex are not selected, so they would never appear for anyone in this galaxy. You are of course free to set the number of available precursors to whatever number you desire, even none. But you have to remember that in multiplayer games, each precursor chain can only be completed by just one player. Therefore, the devs recommend having at least 4 to keep a sense of uncertainty and wonder in the galaxy, but it will be entirely up to us if we want to force a specific precursor. The advantages here are honestly phenomenal. If we're going for a 25 times all crisis, for example, we might want to get the Yut, so we have access to that lovely Yut cryo core for the lovely reduction to fleet upkeep. We might also, if we're going for a psionic run, choose to pick the Zroni. If we're going for a biological ascension, pick the Bowel. If we're going for a synthetic ascension, or we just love megastructures and power, we might pick the Cybrex. You know, the choices here are endless. Though I expect nobody's going to be specifically picking the Emetian traders or the Ad Akarians. I am really excited about this change. This is going to give us a lot more control over the galaxy that we generate and our playthrough, because getting the right precursor sometimes, if you're trying to achieve some specific things or you want to have a specific narrative backstory at play, can be very important to you. So I really am a big fan of this change. Back in the 3.8 Gemini update, concepts were introduced to Stellaris. That is basically the Stellaris version of a tooltip within a tooltip. If you've played Crusader Kings 3 or Victoria 3, you'll know exactly what we're talking about, and I assume as you've probably played Stellaris, you also know what I'm talking about when you hover over a tooltip. Sometimes now you may get a secondary tooltip available if you move into that first one. The developers have been iterating on how they make use of them over time, and they've now become a great asset in helping explain the complexities of Stellaris. With the 4.0 update, the devs are adding a compendium of sorts that contains concepts in searchable form. They're calling this the Stellaris Databank. Looking at the screenshot here, it's basically going to be a simpler version of the Stellaris Wikipedia in a lot of ways, though of course entirely written by the developers with very minimal language used. They're trying to explain things quickly and concisely so that you can understand. This looks like it's going to be a great resource for newer players, though at the moment we will have to wait and see how fleshed out it will be. Currently at present here, it looks like there are only 12 categories in this databank. I assume they're going to add hundreds by the time of release, though of course we will have to wait and see. Concepts within the databank are going to be divided into categories and can themselves include further concepts. Clicking the icon in the top right will search for concepts in the Stellaris wiki for more detailed information if you need it. For example here, searching for alloys gives us every concept that includes the word alloys, sorting the most relevant to the top. At the moment, that is just alloys and minerals, though later on I assume it's going to include megastructures, ships, and so forth. If you have a concept open, that's one of these specialist tooltips within a tooltips, clicking on it will also allow you to open the databank if you'd like to know more. By the sounds of things, the devs are just bringing in this feature now, and they are hopeful that it's going to be improved upon and iterated in the future, getting more and more information and getting a larger and larger databank, in essence, for us, the players, to get information from. I said it earlier, but I'll say it again. This is a fantastic new tool to get in the game, especially for new players. It's going to help people understand what is going on. Also for returning players, when things have changed just a little bit, this is going to help push people in the right direction when they think they already understand a concept. Maybe they were playing back in Stellaris 3.0, but now it has changed to a point where it doesn't quite seem to be doing what they're expecting. They can then open up the concept, find out more about it, and get even more information if that's needed. All in all, I think this is going to be fantastic. And if you're enjoying this video, please open up the databank with that like button. Last week, we got a quick preview of the species menu. Now we're going to go into a little bit more detail. The species screen now provides us with more information about the various species in our empire, including showing the number of trait picks they have remaining. Last week we did see an icon that we've not seen before, and we're now being told that icon is trait picks. You can see it on the screen just to the left of the word chattel slavery on the two species. That shows that they both have 2 trait picks remaining. One step to the left of that, we can see how many trait points they have. Also, getting a visual representation of trait picks is going to be really good from a visual knowledge standpoint, from a UI standpoint. The template modification window itself has also been remade to provide better sorting of positive and negative traits and listing them by value, making it easier to find what you're looking for. Here we're seeing a trait being added, the delicious trait, to just one of the species. We can also see the new menu that opens up here when we are creating a new template. It looks like they've separated the positive traits to the left and the negative traits to the right. I think that's going to be helpful, though I am concerned that we don't actually get to see that many traits on either side, whereas previously we kind of got to see them all. Knowing exactly the name of the traits, I'm not sure is entirely necessary. I think some information may have been lost here, especially if we are going to get a rework to the biological ascension this year. That's kind of what the devs have promised or insinuated so far. If we're getting that rework, one can assume we might be also getting additional traits to match the traits that we have from a machine species. They've got lots of new traits from Machine Age that are much stronger than the advanced biological traits at present. And if we're getting even more traits, that's going to be a lot of scrolling required on that trait selection window. But maybe that's just my pet peeve here. The new flow, when you're trying to modify a species, has removed a few clicks from the process, making it easier. That includes starting the special project immediately. No longer will you have to go to your situation log and manually click it yourself. That's already done. If time is not actually of the essence for you, instead of using a special project to modify your species, you can designate a template as the species default, and then let them integrate over to that default template slowly through time. Certain traditions or buildings may affect the speed of this integration process. I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume that gene clinics may do it faster in the same way that, robot assembly plants speed up the process of auto-modding. Maybe this integration process will be speeded up by that as well. And if you're a robot, I'm assuming they might also add integration for robot species too, and it'll be things like your robot assembly plants, or if you're a cybernetic species, your augmentation centers that are speeding up this POP integration thing. It's also going to be saving us a whole host of research points here, let's not forget, because in order to integrate a species, we usually have to spend a lot of research. If we can integrate them quite quickly, if we're getting, let's say, 3 pops per planet, if we can boost that to 6 or 10 per year, that's going to save us quite a few years of society research. And if we have multiple different species we're integrating simultaneously to one subspecies default template, that will save us even more research and even more time. I kind of can't see now why you'd want to use the special project almost ever unless they've dramatically reduced the cost and time taken. For example, sometimes it might take you, if you've got relatively low research, 40, 50, even 60 months to update a species to a new template. That's 5 in-game years. As long as your planet doesn't have more than, I don't know what the numbers are going to be, but let's say 20 or 30 pops, you can do it without spending anything and get them integrated over the same period. That just seems better to me. I guess we'll have to see what other reworks are coming. But so far I am looking at this and somewhat seeing it as the obsolescence of that species integration project. Like some of the other UIs that are being explored today, the ship designer has had some quality of life updates. They've taken the ship roles that were introduced in the 3.6 Orion update and they have made selecting one part of the basic ship design flow, and then given them a better representation than a scrollable text list. Some pain points of ship design, like the auto-generate changes button blocking saving, have been removed, and in general it's a faster and easier process to create a general ship design. Looking at this as well, I want to note a big thing that is a quality of life improvement for me is that when I create a new ship design here, I no longer have to click the randomize name button. It's going to already put in a randomized name that can be saved. That is amazing. Having to always click custom here looks like one extra click though, so I'm kind of saving a click to get an extra click, which is click neutral, I think. Yeah, overall positive in some ways. Maybe clicking this new custom role thing is going to be a bit annoying, but for newer players, selecting a role when you don't know as much about ship design, I think is going to be very, very useful, assuming the ship designer is behaving well and giving actual useful ship designs, not filling things with autocannons. They have added the custom role, as mentioned, for veteran players that want to design your ship from scratch, or you can of course take the generated templates and modify them to suit your needs before saving. If you've enjoyed this brief look into some of the new features coming with the Stellaris 4.0 update, but you'd like to hear more about the full list of features we're going to get, you'll want to click the video on screen now.